I want to talk about blocks. So when you're blocked, it's an interesting thing. And I want to talk about it in relationship to flow, because usually when you say you're blocked, it means that you are not in flow, that you're not able to get into the flow of writing, of acting, of whatever, right? And I feel like the way people talk about creativity or like being blocked isn't really helpful. It isn't helpful because usually what they say is like, oh, that's just selfishness. And because they took like a Meisner class once upon a time, and somebody got self-conscious, and the teacher said like, oh, that's just being selfish. And I know it was a Meisner class because I've been in that Meisner class. But that does not help. Yes, you can go back to like, oh, like the ego and spirituality, and yeah, it's part of the ego. Of course it is, like, absolutely. But most of it is part of the ego, right? Maybe even the fact that you want to be a creative is part of an ego, It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't help you through a block. It doesn't actively, shift you out of like, being stuck, because that's really what's happening. And in my experience, from first person experience, I can tell you usually it's either because of fear, because you're in survival mode, right? For instance, the last 3 months, I've been worried about where I was gonna like live, right? And so like I could not, like, maybe like some like amazing Tony Award winning playwright like can write through that. I cannot write through that, right? And so like sitting down to write, and I couldn't even, right, fathom. I was just like, I need to find a place. And so like these things like tend to kind of zap your creative juices, because your creative juices are in fact a state of flow, and the state of flow is has to do with, going back to that Meisner class, being in the moment. Even if you're like, I'm saying this, even if you're not an actor, I'm saying if you're a writer, if you're a director, whatever it is, block comes from a lack of flow, which comes from a lack of being in the moment. Your fears can block you, right? So